Hey, and welcome to Achieve with Carolina Live. I'm Carolina Romaniuk, your child and family sleep specialist, and I help parents to get a good night's sleep and to understand their children's sleep needs better. So tonight I wanted to chat about spring coming up, and this weekend is our spring forward. So the clock is going to go an hour forward. Hey Angelica, thanks for joining. Now before we get into this, I wanted to wish all of my wonderful women happy International Women's Day. I hope today was a fabulous day for you, and I am so grateful to spend the evenings with you ladies, with you awesome women. And I wanted to give a shout out to all of the strong women that I know, all of the brave women that I know, all the creative women that I know, everyone that all the women in the world. And may we know them, may we be them, and may we raise our daughters to be them as well. I have two boys, so my job is to make sure that I raise them to be respectful to everyone around them, especially to women. So I love you all, and I hope today was wonderful. There were so many guys that I saw that were buying flowers, and it was just an awesome day. And did you see that new statue that they put up on Wall Street by the bull? It has of the young girl, and she's called Fearless Girl, and I can't remember what the title was, what they had on the plaque for her, but I remember it was like, when I read it, it was really beautiful, because it shows like she's in the power stance, like she's standing like this, and she's really just showing the world what she can do and that she's not afraid of anything. And I just love it. I can't wait to actually see the statue live. Maybe I'll be there. I'm gonna be down there tomorrow, so I'm gonna see if maybe I can kind of sneak by and take a picture with her. So hey Gabrielle, hey Angelica, and thanks. Happy Women's Day. Yay! I'm wearing flowers. So today what we're going to be talking about is spring. Can you believe it? It is crazy. It was just like recently that we were dealing with fall back, and the times going backwards and all that kind of breaks havoc within our home, with the little ones not being on a proper sleep schedule and all that other fun stuff. Hey Julia, happy Women's Day. Hi Mama, happy Women's Day, Mommy. So yeah, and I can't believe spring's already like around the corner. So this Sunday, the 12th, is going to be spring forward, and what that means is that your clock is going to go boing an hour later. So I think it starts at 2 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken, but double check on that. But I know it's Sunday. I just don't know exactly the time frame on that, but it's surviving the spring forward. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about tonight, usually like 3 aspects that I wanted to kind of bring up. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. You know the deal by now. And this time for spring forward is usually my most popular time frame for parents, because the one for fall back is the one that I get a lot of people like being nervous. What am I going to do? How do I prep my little one for the fall back? And that kind of, kids kind of go bonkers off of that. But the spring forward is pretty easy. It's actually very simple. You really don't even have to do much. And especially if you have an early riser, this is like your blessing for early risers to have a spring forward, because the hour will go forward. So let's get into this. Now, if you have a little one that is a pretty decent sleeper and they have, let's say, a schedule from 7 to 7, right? Isn't that ideal? Now, you really don't need to have any in advance changes, like changes prior. Like when you were doing the fall back, what you would do is you would start every day or every other day, kind of move the times forward, so then when the time goes forward, you are at that time frame when the fall went back. Hope that made sense. So when you're springing forward, you're just moving the time an hour forward. But if your little one already has a pretty good schedule, like from 7 to 7, I really wouldn't change anything, because it'll only take a couple of days for it to kind of situate itself. So what you would do is either not do anything if they have a really good schedule, or the second thing is, let's say your child wakes up late, that they wake up anywhere between 8:30, not wake up, that they go to bed late and they wake up late. So like, let's say bedtime could be anywhere like 8:30 or 9 and later, and wake up can be 8 or later. So what you would want to do ideally is move that bedtime up earlier. You can do it the day of spring forward. Sometimes I like to do it before, like a couple of days before, to kind of prep the body for it. But for springing forward, it doesn't really take much. It doesn't take that much to do it. So what I would do is, you can do it the day of, so it'll be Sunday, that you would move the time backwards. So you would go probably like 15-20 minutes. Some people say like a half an hour. It depends on how your child can react to it. And you would move it earlier. So as opposed to, if they're always falling asleep at 8:30, bedtime would be at 8. So then when spring forward happens, that time would kind of overlap, and it would balance out. So that is for your solution if a child has a later bedtime. If they have a pretty good schedule, I wouldn't change anything, because it would fix itself. So if you start shifting around the schedule, you can kind of mess it up a little, and I wouldn't really do anything on that part. Now, other part is if you have an early riser. Now, if you have an early riser, that is fantastic, because there is nothing you should do, honestly, because your time will go into the balance by itself naturally. Hey Jacqueline, hey Rosanna. So what I mean by that is, for an example, let's say they wake up at 5 or they wake up at 4, right? Once the time change happens, instead of 4, they're going to wake up at 5, and then bedtime is also going to be an hour later. If they wake up usually at 5, wake up after the spring forward will be 6. So it's going to be an hour later. So for early risers, this is fantastic to do that. Would you say, Julia, I'm so glad. I'm tired of waking up at 6. Yeah. So also keep this in mind. It doesn't stay like this permanently. It can be maybe like a week or 2. Sometimes for kids, depending on how sensitive they are, they can go back to being an early riser, and just the time difference will help them in kind of lengthening it out temporarily. So what you need to do is really stay consistent on it and try and continue on with the same pattern that they have. If they are having a hard time waking up and they need to be awake at a certain time frame, what you would do is use their environmental aspects. You would open up the blinds, you would let light in, you would, maybe blow on their forehead or take off some piece of clothing off of them to kind of increase body temperature, so then they could wake up that way. So using your environment does help significantly when you're trying to keep track of how they're sleeping and making sure that they're not sleeping too late either. So an early riser, this is awesome stuff to go for. Now again, just to do a recap, there were 3 aspects that I went over. One is if you already have a pretty good schedule, like 7 to 7, I wouldn't change anything. There's really no need to do that. It can, your schedule can shift like a couple of days, maybe a week tops. Now the second aspect is if your child is a late sleeper, and they go to bed, let's say like 8:30 or 9 or even later, and they wake up later than 8, what you would want to do is to bump up bedtime and the wake up time earlier by 15-20 minutes, maybe even a half an hour, to kind of get to your goal time. Just go with the flow of your child. You don't want to move the times too quickly, because then that could kind of backfire. That's why I was saying you can do it in increments of maybe 10 or maybe increments of 5 if you want to do it at a slower pace. If you want to go full force, you can just go straight to 30-minute early wake up the day of, which is Sunday. If not, you can start tonight or you can start tomorrow and do in increments to help with that time frame. And then the third one is if you have an early riser. So an early riser, really there's not much you can do, because what's going to happen is that early riser, so if it's like 5, they're going to start waking up an hour later, and that can last a week or two, or for some kids it can stay that way, you know, for a while, or they might resort back to waking up at the early times. So especially with spring and then summer hitting, it's going to be a little difficult for little ones to fall asleep at bedtime at the proper times. So for an example, if during the winter they're used to sleeping at 7, it's going to be really hard for them to fall asleep at that time, because, you know, the light is beaming in. Also during the spring and the summer we have the birds chirping, so they can start waking up little ones outside, and you wouldn't really notice because you're the one, you're sleeping yourself. So having like a white noise machine to block out that sound, that does help a lot. And making sure that you have blackout curtains, that helps significantly too. You know, when the summer happens, we kind of tend to, I know I'm kind of like talking really way out of context right now, and spring hasn't hit yet, but my mind is already in the summer. But, you know, when you get to that point, everyone wants to kind of be outside, and, you know, sleep kind of gets put on the back burner of it. But ideally what you want to do is you want to try and stick to the schedule as much as possible. So you know how I always talk about the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time you stay consistent with your schedule, and 20% of the time you can have, you know, you have life. You can go out, you can, you know, stay a little bit longer past nap time or past bedtime or anything like that. But what you will really want to implement is making sure that at least 80% of the time you are staying with some sort of a structure to keep your little one sleeping beautifully. Especially if your little one is having night wakings, you need to make sure that those are not happening by making sure that the schedule is perfected on that. Julia says, is 8:30 to 6 considered normal? What age? It's not, it's a pretty good time, but it depends on the age of the little one. So Julia, let me know how old your little one is, and then I could let you know on that. Does anyone have any questions regarding the time change for springing forward for this weekend? Are you nervous? How are you planning on, you know, going through with it? Let me know. Type it in the comments below. If you know someone that maybe you guys were talking about it recently and they might benefit from this video, make sure to share it. Please, right over there, the little share button, and I would greatly appreciate this. Also, you know that these videos that I'm doing, I'm actually getting people calling me, not calling me, but messaging me literally worldwide. So I got someone from India and from Pakistan. So thank you so much for sharing this, because you don't know who we can reach and who we can help. So it means from the bottom of my heart, I'm so beyond grateful that you guys are sharing, that you're liking this, and that we can help as many parents as possible. And this is a gift. You know, not only that I'm providing to you, but you are allowing other moms and other dads to benefit from these videos too, just by you pressing a little button, share. And you know, I'm really grateful for that. So Julie says 2 years. Yeah, it's not that bad. 8:30 is not that bad, as long as they are not having night wakings. If they are, then bedtime would have to be bumped up a little. So any more questions? Nothing? I love your questions, guys. Let's see. Wow, we knocked this video out really quickly. Oh man. Okay, Angelica says, I know this is off topic. Hold on, let me open this. I know this is off topic, but is it considered a night waking if my son just kind of wakes up once in the night, various times each night, and we just take him to our bed and we all continue to sleep? Yes, if he wakes up and you actually take him out of his bed, then that's considered a night wakings. If he just wakes up and he can put himself gradually to bed by himself, then I wouldn't necessarily call that a night waking. But if you take him from his bed into yours, I'm assuming that he's awake for quite some time. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, everyone has their different kind of point or limit that they could handle, and then you kind of become a reactive co-sleeper or bed share, whichever term that you want to use in that part. So, but you're mentioning that he doesn't actually wake up. So I don't understand why you would necessarily take him into your bed if he's not fully awake. It just says that it's something we have done for convenience. So if it's convenient for you, that's fine. But if he's sleeping, I don't see a point for you to actually take him into your bed unless you are a little, maybe you're nervous that he will wake up and then you won't be able to put him back to sleep. So maybe that's why you're placing him in your bed out of, what you're mentioning, out of convenience for yourself. So if it doesn't hurt you, if it works for your family, then go ahead. If something's not clicking or, he does start waking up and he can't go back to the bed and you putting him in your bed isn't working, then you need to kind of change your approach. But if everyone's sleeping, then I don't see why not. I don't see a problem for it. Any other questions? Zoya says, how can I prevent my 11-month-old from falling asleep later with the time change? So what you would do is, it depends on what time that they sleep now, Zoya. So remember with the 3 things that I was talking about. So if your little one is a good sleeper right now, if they are from let's say 7 to 7 or 8 to 8, there's really not much you can do, because once they go maybe an hour later, but then they usually bounce back to their normal schedule, what it was. Kids aren't going to push that much later. So for an example, if your little one does fall asleep, let's say 10, right? And they don't really fall asleep at 11 because their body just can't handle the pressure for that. So they'll still bounce back to their usual times. Now, if your little one has a later time, let's say 8:30, 9, or 10 o'clock, well, not really 10, but let's say 8 or 9, then what you'll do is you'll move up every day or every other day by 10, 15 minutes, and you would increase the time earlier. So what that means is, for an example, let's say 8:30 is your usual bedtime, right? So by the day of, by Sunday, you should be putting him to bed at 8 as opposed to 8:30. So then that new time within a couple of days will kind of work its way out, and then that 8 o'clock will be pushed back to its normal time. You're saying he falls asleep anywhere between 7:30 and 8:30 depending on the last nap. Yes, and that's good. So there's really not much that you can do because it's a pretty good schedule, and I really wouldn't focus too heavily on it. If you do notice that he's sleeping way past his time, then I would just use the environmental aspects, and I would open up the windows, maybe turn the lights on, use light to kind of help them wake up, to arouse them that way. Let's see, hold on. Angelica says, yes, that's what it is. We have never even gone past 2 to 3 minutes and just take him. He just makes a couple of noises and sits up, we take him. Okay, so Angelica, you have 2 aspects. You have the nighttime, and you also have the naps. So the naps you would have to kind of fix by bumping them earlier. And as far as bedtime, if he makes a noise or so, and you don't want him to, you don't feel comfortable waiting to hear if he will start escalating and crying, or he can just fall asleep. It can go both ways, and you won't really necessarily know unless you are patient enough and you just wait and see where he goes with that, because he might surprise you. He might just fall asleep, and the fact that you're bringing him into your bed might not even be necessary for you to do something like that. So I would suggest to at least wait and listen to him. If it's a whine, that's fine. If he starts escalating and crying, then you know, okay, he has some sort of an association that he needs to be put, help to be put into bed. But if it's working for your family, if he's not tossing and turning, if he's not kicking you, if he's not, sleeping on your head or anything like that, and everyone else in your bed is sleeping beautifully, then I would stay with it. I don't see any harm to that. Let's see. Yeah, Angelica, the same applies for naps. So the spring forward scheduling applies for bedtime and for naps. Let's see what else. Jennifer says, I would like my 3-month-old to sleep later in the AM. Do I just go with the time change and put him to bed at the same time? Okay, so Jennifer, 3 months is really, really young to start sleep training. So at this point, your little one doesn't have any organized patterns, so until 4 months of age. So there's really not much you can do right now. Just kind of go with the flow of how they're sleeping, and usually the time changes will kind of help work out the process on its own for little ones under 4 months. If you start to notice by 4 months things have kind of went downhill, or they're not sleeping as good as they used to, then contact me and then we can kind of put something together. But at this point, I really wouldn't stress that much about it. Under 4 months of age, there's really only so much you can do, because the child is biologically immature to create any type of patterns, to create any type of a schedule, or to stay structured in any way. So when a parent tries to do that and it doesn't work, what happens is they kind of beat themselves up about it, and they wonder, like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not a good parent? Or why can't I figure this out? And I just want you to know that the only thing that you should be focusing on right now is bonding with your little one and getting a chance to know them, and everything else will work itself out. So don't stress about it, okay, Jen? Just kind of go with the flow, and if you do have any questions or anything like that, let me know. I'm here. You have my contact info, and I'll help you with that. But as of now, you're doing an awesome job. And the fact that you're asking questions about it just shows how powerful you are and how wonderful mom you are. So awesome job on that. Kudos to you. Yay! Let's see. Who else has awesome questions? Oh, that's it. Hey, hubby. My hubby's signed on, Andre. Let's see. So anyone else has any awesome questions for me this lovely evening? Or maybe you want to I wonder if everyone's like out and hanging out and stuff like that, maybe going to dinner, because we're not getting as many people as we usually do. So I'm wondering what everyone's doing tonight. Okay, Angelica says, I will try to be patient and brave to see what my son will do if I don't take him within 2 to 3 minutes. Hopefully you are right and he will surprise us. Well, he might surprise you in 2 ways. He might surprise you by crying hysterically, or he might surprise you by falling asleep. So I wouldn't really, I have to sneeze. I wouldn't really stress too much about it. So don't worry, just be patient, okay? Being a parent means being patient, really what it is. And we know how to be patient pretty much when we have our kids, especially my 2 very energized boys. They're 6 and they're 4. Yeah! So, being patient, you kind of grow with it through the time. Well, Angelica, I can't guarantee you no crying, but it's just you will have to see how he plays out in it. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Okay. So, any other questions, guys? Hey, Maria. You guys laughing that I'm sneezing? Oh, oh my God. Oh, excuse me, I'm having like a sneeze attack here. Okay, so we're good to go. Thank you. I am finished with my speech for this evening. Sweet dreams, everyone. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And if you do have questions after Sunday, oh my God. That's it. No more sneezing for the rest of the day. So, if you guys have any questions for me after Sunday, let me know. You can message me or email me at itsme@achievewithcarolina.com. And I love you as always. Share. And that's all I have for you today, guys. So take care of the spring forward. And oh my God, spring is coming up. So that's all that I have for you today. Sweet dreams, everyone. Mwah. I have to sneeze again, but I'm gonna turn off the screen. Love you. Sweet dreams. Bye.